Let's talk to the Business Secretary, Alec Sharma. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Good morning. Well, we're going to have to talk a little bit about a confusion over new rules and what we're going to hear today. But obviously, there's other aspects of government still going on other than the pandemic. And that, of course, is the announcement today of greener homes, jobs and cheaper bills. That's what the government's promising us as part of the biggest upgrade of the nation's buildings in a generation. So how much money is being spent? What's it going on? And how's it going to improve our lives?
Well, thank you for that introduction, Julia. So we're talking about £3 billion, £2 billion of it on a green homes grant for individual households, £1 billion going on greening public buildings, schools, hospitals, and the like. What people are able to do in terms of households, and we actually think around 600,000 households will be able to benefit from this, is to go on to the Green Homes Grant website, which is on our gov.uk page, and you can have a look and see what measures you want in terms of improving the energy efficiency of your homes. The government will fund up to two-thirds of up to £10,000 in terms of the measures. There are both primary measures and secondary measures. So the primary measures are insulation in your roof, insulation in your walls, underfloor, and then, of course, there's a range of secondary measures as well. And as you said, the key point about this is that as a result of this policy, we're able to achieve three things. One is support tens of thousands of green jobs. Secondly, making sure that we are protecting the environment and getting emissions down. You know, we've got our target of net zero by 2050, and this will help. And thirdly, this is really importantly for people, is that it'll help their back pocket. So we think that if you put the measures in place, you could save up to £600 a year as a result of this energy efficiency.
OK. Do you think that at a time when we are losing goodness knows how many jobs, so possibly 3 million of the 3 million currently on furlough could be out on their ear, 1 in 4 bars, pubs, restaurants has been forced to close, many people really concerned that they're not, they're not going to see a likely of a pay rise or anything, people are going to be unable to pay their mortgages and pay their rents. Do you think most people right now really care about greening up their home?
Well, I think they do, actually. As I said, this is a grant that is being given to you by the government. And in fact, if you're on low income, you get up to £10,000. 100% of that comes from government. And ultimately, by putting these measures in, you do indeed save further money because of your bills going down. And as I said, we think up to £600 could be saved a year, depending on what measures you put in. And ultimately, you know, you talked about jobs, Julia. This is about supporting jobs, tens of thousands of jobs. So supporting local jobs, people who are plumbers, electricians, people who are installers. I've had a discussion with the sector. They're really up for this. And in fact, the amount of interest that we've had in this from the public has also been strong. So I hope people will take advantage, get onto that website, get your voucher, get the work done as soon as possible.
OK. I mean, do you think that people running, for instance, these pubs, clubs and restaurants and bars, all of which are either just having to shut up shop completely or losing, you know, so much business that, frankly, they're not going to last very longer. Do you think they should get sort of help for things like, you know, paying their bills, paying their staff, keeping themselves open, rather than help for making them rather more environmentally sound? And is the government going to offer them any help, given that we've got that 10 p.m. curfew in now?
Yeah, so Julia, I mean, you're right. Look, there are many businesses that are facing a difficult time and challenging time right now. You talked about the hospitality sector. You will know that the furlough scheme continues to operate until the end of October. We then have the job support scheme. In terms of that particular sector, we have made grants available to individual businesses. We've also ensured that actually they don't have to pay any business rates for a year. There are other measures they can take advantage of. So we are supporting those sectors. I know it's difficult. And going to this point about the 10 p.m. curfew, it's part of a range of measures that we've introduced in the last few days. And it is all about bearing down on this infection. It's all about making sure that we're keeping people safe. And if we protect the health of our nation, we also ultimately protect the health of our economy. Nobody, Julia, wants to go back to where we were in March, which is a national lockdown.
Don't we? It seems the polling seems to show an awful lot of people have been scared so witless they do want to go back to a national lockdown. Now, you know as well as I do, I've got to ask you about Boris Johnson, his confusion over the rules yesterday in terms of rules in England. Of course, we know a lot of those are very different from Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales. And we know rule of 6 and everything, and 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. closing of pubs and who you can meet up with, different households, etc., etc. Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, the man who's brought in rules, he didn't know that the rules were different in Northern Eastern England, North East England. He didn't know what those different rules were. He's apologised since, saying he was misspeaking. If someone is fined for breaking the rules in this country, should they be able to be let off that fine on the basis they didn't understand the rules?
Well, look, I mean, so firstly, in terms of local restrictions that are in place, there are 13 million people across England who are currently in varying levels of restrictions. And obviously they are different, and that's based on infection rates, that's based on discussions with local leaders as well in terms of what makes sense. And in that case, people should go onto that gov.uk website, or indeed the website of their local authority, and see in black and white for themselves precisely what the rules are that relate to them and how they can keep themselves and others safe. And as I said, in terms of the national position, it's pretty clear, rule of 6, indoors and outdoors.
OK. It is pretty clear, except rule of 6 indoors, outdoors, but of course different whether it's Scotland or in other parts of the constituent parts of the UK, whether or not children or babies count at all. There is an issue, though, over people not knowing the rules, simply because the rules come into force without there being any publicity. Various rules came into force earlier this week that had not been even announced, not even mentioned by anyone in government. They just came into force, having been signed off a few hours earlier, including rules about landlords not paying loud music and not allowing people to dance in their establishments. The £4,000 fine if you recklessly leave self-isolation, or if you fine if you describe you say someone else as should be self-isolating and they're not. Do you think that this is a way to make laws that could lead to huge fines for people and presumably imprisonment if they don't fine, a rule that would allow a COVID marshal with no training whatsoever from their local council to use, in quotes, reasonable force, unquote, to enforce those laws? Is this a way to make laws in a free and democratic country without any parliamentary oversight and anyone being told in advance that those rules are coming into force?
Yes, I mean, look.
Yes, your answer is yes. That is the way to make laws.
So, Julia, if I may, the issue with this is that in terms of having to make those rules, sometimes they have to be put in place very quickly because we want to get infection rates under control in particular areas. Now, it is absolutely the case that those rules will lapse if they are not enacted and voted on in Parliament within 28 days. So there is a level of scrutiny there. I completely accept it is effectively after the event. But it is also the case, and you see this every day. I mean, you have ministers like me coming on every day being quizzed absolutely right and proper. You see almost every day a minister standing up at the dispatch box talking about a particular policy that we're introducing when it comes to coronavirus.
But they didn't mention any of those policies I just mentioned. They didn't even mention those in advance.
Yeah. So if I may, so for people to be able to question them. Now, the issue is, which some parliamentarians have raised, is whether or not there is a way of engagement with parliamentarians before rules are brought in. I know that's something that is being looked at. We're discussing. I don't want to preempt anything on your programme. You'll appreciate that. But that discussion is ongoing. We've also made sure that the scientific advisors are so important in all of this are also available for regular briefings with MPs. And a lot of MPs have also asked for, what are the stats in terms of my constituency? We're making that available as well. So we want to make sure that we are serving a Parliament, we're serving MPs. But I know people will also understand that sometimes we have to act very fast, and that's because we want to keep people safe.
OK. Hospital admissions have gone down 4 consecutive days in a row, and they've gone down quicker than it would be likely that they could be affected by the rule of 6 and other rules that are brought in that you say have to be brought in quickly. Why then are we ramping up the restrictions on people's lives when we are not seeing the exponential growth that we were told we would be seeing? The graph that Chris Whitty and Valence showed a week and a half ago, we are not coming anywhere close to the sort of growth doubling every day that they were talking about. There is no doubt at all we are not seeing the sort of growth we saw back in March. Why do we need those sorts of measures then?
Well, so, I mean, that of course is good news. And the reason is because people are showing a great deal of common sense. You've also seen the infection rates numbers that have gone up. But we know a lot more about this virus now.
They're not growing. They're not going up exponentially.
Well, there are therapeutic treatments as well, which are available. So there is a whole range of things that we can do to assist people who are infected without having to have them hospitalised. But at the end of the day, this is all about making sure that we can return to some level of normality. Nobody wants, Julia. I can absolutely guarantee you that nobody wants us in government to move back to what we had in March. That's really would be very, very bad news for all of us. And that's why we look to people's good judgment, look to their common sense. Please observe the rules, follow them, and that is how we keep each other safe.
Sorry, but Alec Sharma, you're echoing what the Prime Minister said repeatedly. We need to look to people's common sense and their good judgment. But we're not being allowed to exercise common sense. So, for instance, I can only have meet up with 5 other people. I can't meet up with 6, even if it's outdoors. That would be exercising common sense. You're not allowing me or any of my listeners to exercise their own common sense about how to keep themselves and their loved ones safe. You're doing the exact opposite of that.
Well, I think what we're setting is a framework for people to follow, and actually...
No, sir, it's not a framework. These are laws.
Julia, the reason that we are where we are now and the economy is largely open, we're seeing a little bit of a recovery, consumer confidence starting to return. The reason is because people did respond over the last few months to the rules and the guidelines that we put in place. Businesses made their businesses COVID secure. We saw the same in the hospitality sector. That's why, and that's what I'm talking about, that sort of common sense, following the guidelines, following the rules. If people do that, we will get through this. We will come out the other side, but we can only do that if people observe the rules.
OK, Business Secretary Alok Sharma, I have to let you go. Thank you very much.